The massive warship times, Dominion's edge times, hung in the void like a metallic predator, its hull scarred from countless battles across the galaxy. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge, his weathered hands gripping the command rail as he stared at the alien fleet arrayed before them. 50,000 enemy vessels, each one bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. "Status report," Chen commanded, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "All human fleets are in position, Admiral," reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Reeves, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. "The Terran Defense Coalition has assembled everything we have. 200 ships against their 50,000. Chen nodded grimly. The odds were impossible. But humanity had faced impossible odds before. They'd clawed their way from a single world to spanning 3 star systems. Always outnumbered, always outgunned, but never outfought. The enemy fleet belonged to the Zephyrian Empire, a race of insectoid aliens who had conquered half the known galaxy. Their ships were organic constructs, grown rather than built, with chitinous hulls that could regenerate damage. The Zephyrians themselves stood 8 feet tall, with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws, and compound eyes that could track dozens of targets simultaneously. "Incoming transmission from the enemy flagship," announced Communications Officer Zhang. "Put it through," Chen ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the Zephyrian dreadnought. The creature that appeared was unlike any Zephyrian the humans had encountered. This one was massive, easily 12 feet tall, with a crown of bone spikes jutting from her elongated skull. Her 4 arms moved with fluid grace, and her compound eyes held an ancient intelligence that seemed to peer directly into Chen's soul. "I am Hive Queen Xith-Ara," the creature spoke, her voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the ship's hull. "I come to reclaim what was stolen from us long ago." Chen stepped forward. "Admiral Marcus Chen, of the Terran Defense Coalition. I don't know what you think we've stolen, but Earth and her colonies are under our protection." The alien queen's head tilted slightly, and something that might have been amusement flickered across her alien features. "Protection? You speak of protection to me? I who have watched over your kind for millennia?" "I don't understand," Chen replied, though a chill was beginning to creep up his spine. Queen Xith-Ara's massive form moved closer to her screen, her compound eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. "Your species calls your homeworld Earth, yes? 3rd planet from a yellow star in what you term the Orion Arm?" "That's correct," Chen confirmed, wondering where this was leading. "I know that world well," the Queen continued, her voice taking on an almost nostalgic tone. "I was there at the beginning, when your ancestors first looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond their reach. I guided your evolution, protected your species from extinction events that would have wiped you from existence." Chen felt his blood run cold. "That's impossible. Humanity evolved naturally, on Earth." "Natural?" The Queen's laugh was like grinding metal. "You think the asteroid that ended your dinosaurs was natural? You think your species survived the ice ages through mere chance? I have been humanity's guardian for 65 million years, child. I am your mother, in every sense that matters." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Chen's mind raced, trying to process the implications of what he was hearing. "Even if that were true," Chen said slowly. Queen Xith-Ara's demeanor shifted, the almost maternal warmth replaced by something far more dangerous. 3 cycles ago, my scouts reported something that made my blood freeze in my veins. Human ships, attacking and destroying refugee vessels, fleeing the war-torn sectors of the Andromeda Spiral. Thousands of innocent beings, including children, slaughtered without mercy. "That's a lie," Chen snapped. "The TDC doesn't target civilians. We don't attack refugees. The evidence is undeniable," the Queen hissed, her 4 arms spreading wide in a gesture of barely contained rage. "Ships bearing human markings, using human technology, committing genocide against the helpless. My children, humanity, had become the very monsters I spent eons protecting them from." Chen's mind reeled. The TDC had strict protocols about civilian casualties. Every human ship captain knew the rules of engagement by heart. The idea that human forces would deliberately target refugees was unthinkable. There has to be an explanation, Chen insisted. Some mistake or misunderstanding. Mistake? The Queen's voice rose to a roar that echoed through both ships. I watched the recordings myself. Human voices giving orders to fire on evacuation transports. Human faces behind the helmets of those who boarded the survivors' ships and executed the wounded. Queen Zythara leaned forward, her massive form filling the screen. I have spent countless eons nurturing your species, guiding you toward the stars, believing that humanity would be a force for good in a dark galaxy. I protected you from the Void Hunters when you were still discovering fire. I redirected the path of cosmic storms that would have sterilized your world. I even influenced your mythology and legends, teaching you concepts of honor and justice through the stories of heroes and gods. Chen felt as though the deck had shifted beneath his feet. If what this creature was saying was true, then humanity's entire understanding of their place in the universe was wrong. But now, the Queen continued, her compound eyes blazing with fury. I discover that my children have become murderers, that the species I nurtured and protected has turned into a plague upon the galaxy. Do you understand my rage, Admiral Chen? Do you comprehend the depth of my disappointment? Your Majesty, Chen said, forcing himself to remain calm. I give you my word that the Terran Defense Coalition has never authorized attacks on civilian targets. If humans were involved in these atrocities, they weren't acting under TDC orders. Words, the Queen spat. I have heard words before. I require proof. I require justice. The alien fleet began moving, their organic ships pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of preparation for battle. Chen could see weapon ports opening along their hulls, revealing clusters of bioweapons that could dissolve molecular bonds or turn a ship's own hull against its crew. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Reeves whispered urgently. We're picking up massive energy readings from their fleet. They're preparing to fire. Chen raised his hand toward the communications console. Wait. Queen Zythara, give us time to investigate these claims. If you're right about what humans have done, then we need to find out who was responsible and bring them to justice. The Queen paused, her head tilting as she studied Chen's face. You would turn against your own kind? I would turn against anyone who commits genocide, Chen replied firmly, human or otherwise. But I need proof. Real evidence. Not just accusations. For a long moment, the only sound was the steady thrum of the ship's engines. Then, Queen Zythara spoke again, her voice slightly less hostile. Very well. I will give you 1 solar day to provide evidence that your people are investigating these crimes. But know this, Admiral Chen. If you attempt to deceive me, if you try to protect those responsible for this betrayal, I will show humanity the same mercy they showed to the innocents they slaughtered. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Chen turned to his communications officer. Get me a priority channel to Earth Command. Emergency encryption. As the connection established, Chen's mind was already racing ahead, trying to piece together the puzzle. If humans really had attacked refugee ships, it meant there was a rogue element operating outside TDC authority. But who? And why would they risk provoking a war with an alien empire that could crush humanity without breaking a sweat? The face that appeared on the screen was Admiral Sarah Morrison, Chen's old friend, and the current head of Earth Command. Her expression was grim even before Chen explained the situation. Marcus, thank God you're alive, Morrison said. We've been monitoring the situation. That alien fleet appeared out of nowhere 12 hours ago. Sarah, we have a problem, Chen began, then quickly outlined his conversation with Queen Zythara. Morrison's face grew increasingly pale as Chen spoke. When he finished, she was quiet for several seconds. Marcus, she said finally, there's something you need to know. 3 months ago, we lost contact with the Deep Space Patrol vessel Times Retribution *. Captain James Voss and his crew went dark while investigating reports of piracy in the outer systems. Chen felt a sinking sensation in his stomach. Voss? He was court-martialed 5 years ago for excessive force during the Colonial Rebellion. He was, Morrison confirmed. But his record was exemplary before that incident, and we needed experienced officers for deep space patrol. We thought he'd learned from his mistakes. Are you telling me that Voss might have gone rogue? I'm telling you that the Times, Retribution Times, was equipped with advanced stealth systems and a full complement of Marines. If someone wanted to stage attacks that would implicate the TDC while remaining undetected, Voss would have the means and the knowledge to do it. Chen closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. How many people are we talking about? The Times, Retribution Times, had a crew of 300. But Marcus, there's more. We've identified at least 6 other ships that have gone missing over the past year, all of them commanded by officers with questionable loyalty records or disciplinary issues. Someone's been recruiting, Chen realized. Building a private fleet using disgraced TDC personnel. It looks that way. We're analyzing the missing ship's last known positions, trying to establish a pattern. But Marcus, even if we can prove that these attacks were carried out by rogue elements, will this alien queen believe us? Chen looked out at the massive alien fleet hanging in space before them. Each ship was a masterpiece of bioengineering, grown over decades and crewed by beings who had mastered interstellar travel while humanity was still learning to make fire. I don't know, he admitted. But we have to try. Because if we can't convince her, then humanity is about to face a war we cannot possibly win. As if summoned by his thoughts, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Commander Reeves looked up from her console, her face pale. Admiral, we're detecting massive gravitational distortions throughout the system. The alien fleet. They're not just threatening to attack, they're preparing to collapse the local space-time continuum. If they complete whatever they're doing, the entire system will be pulled into an artificial black hole. Chen stared at the tactical display, watching as the Zephyrian ships arranged themselves in a complex 3-dimensional pattern around the human fleet. The space between them began to shimmer and distort, as if reality itself was being stretched and twisted. How long do we have? He asked. At their current rate of progression, maybe 6 hours before the gravitational cascade becomes irreversible. Chen turned back to the communication screen where Admiral Morrison was waiting. Sarah, we need those files on the missing ships, and we need them now. If Queen Xithara really is what she claims to be, if she really has been protecting humanity for millions of years, then maybe there's still a chance to make her understand the truth. I'll transmit everything we have, Morrison promised. But Marcus, what if you're wrong? What if these aliens are just using this as an excuse for conquest? Chen looked out at the alien fleet again, remembering the pain he'd heard in Queen Xithara's voice when she spoke of humanity's betrayal. There had been something genuine in that anguish. Something that spoke of a bond deeper than politics or territory. Then we fight, he said simply, and we die knowing we tried to do the right thing. As the transmission ended, Chen found himself faced with an impossible task. Convince an alien queen that humanity was worth saving, while racing against time to prevent the destruction of everything he'd sworn to protect. The fate of his species hung in the balance. And somewhere out there in the dark between stars, rogue humans were still carrying out the genocide that had brought this terrible reckoning upon them all. The data streams flowing across the holographic displays painted a picture that made Admiral Chen's blood run cold. Ship registrations, personnel files, and tactical reports all pointed to the same horrifying conclusion. Captain James Voss hadn't just gone rogue. He'd built himself an army. Analysis complete, Admiral, reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, the TDC's chief intelligence officer, who had been hastily transferred to the Times Dominion's Edge Times via emergency shuttle. We've identified 13 vessels that have disappeared from TDC registries over the past 18 months. Combined crew complement of approximately 4,000 personnel. Chen studied the holographic representation of the missing ships floating before him, destroyers, frigates, and support vessels, all commanded by officers who'd been disciplined, demoted, or otherwise marginalized by TDC command structure. Voss has been recruiting, Lieutenant Commander Reeves observed grimly, gathering every officer who felt they'd been wronged by the system. It's more than that, Doctor, Vasquez continued, highlighting several data points. Look at the pattern of disappearances. Each ship went missing while on deep space patrol or long-range reconnaissance missions. Someone with high-level access to TDC operations was coordinating this. Chen felt a chill run down his spine. You're suggesting we have a traitor at the highest levels of command. I'm saying someone wanted to build a fleet that could operate with complete autonomy while still maintaining the appearance of legitimate TDC authority. And they succeeded. The implications were staggering. Somewhere in the dark between stars, 4,000 humans were carrying out a campaign of genocide under the TDC flag, destroying any hope of peaceful relations with alien civilizations. Worse, they were doing it with the backing of someone still embedded within the TDC command structure. Admiral, Communications Officer Zhang interrupted. We're receiving another transmission from Queen Scythara. Put her through, Chen ordered. The alien queen's massive form filled the main screen. But something had changed. Her compound eyes held a different quality of light, and her forearms moved in agitated patterns that spoke of barely contained emotion. Admiral Chen, she began, her voice carrying undertones of distress. I have received disturbing intelligence from my scouts. The human vessels responsible for the attacks on refugee convoys are not operating alone. Chen leaned forward. What do you mean? 2. 3 hours ago, my deep space monitoring stations detected a human battle group moving through the Kepler 442 system. 15 ships, all bearing TDC identification codes. They are systematically destroying every settlement in the system, regardless of species or allegiance. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of ventilation systems. Chen felt as though someone had punched him in the stomach. Your Majesty, he said carefully. Can you transmit the sensor data from your monitoring stations? Queen Xithara's head tilted, her compound eyes studying Chen's face. You continue to claim ignorance of these atrocities. Because I am ignorant of them, Chen replied firmly. The TDC does not authorize genocide. If human ships are carrying out these attacks, they're acting without official sanction. The Queen was quiet for a moment, then gestured with one of her arms. Data began flowing across the TDC displays, showing sensor readings and visual confirmation of human ships engaged in systematic destruction of civilian targets. Dr. Vasquez quickly began analyzing the incoming data. Admiral, these energy signatures match the missing TDC vessels. And look at this. She highlighted a section of the tactical display. The formation patterns, the attack vectors, they're all from TDC tactical manuals. Whoever's commanding these ships has intimate knowledge of our operational procedures. Chen watched in horror as the data painted a picture of methodical extermination. The rogue human fleet had targeted evacuation centers, medical facilities, and refugee camps with clinical precision. There were no survivors. Your Majesty, Chen said, turning back to Queen Xithara. I need you to understand something. The humans carrying out these attacks are criminals. They've stolen TDC ships and are operating without authorization. The legitimate government of humanity condemns these actions. The Queen's compound eyes blazed with fury. Condemns? Your people are committing genocide against species I have protected for millennia? And you offer condemnation? I offer justice, Chen replied. Give us the location of these rogue ships. Let us handle our own criminals. Handle them? Queen Xithara's laugh was like the sound of tearing metal. Admiral Chen, do you comprehend the scope of what your people have done? The refugees they slaughtered were fleeing the Void Hunters, an ancient enemy that consumes entire civilizations. I had spent 3,000 years evacuating populations from the Void Hunters' path, guiding them to safety in uninhabited systems. Your rogue humans found these refugees at their most vulnerable and butchered them like animals. The weight of revelation hit Chen like a physical blow. The Void Hunters were legend among spacefaring species, an ancient horror from the dark between galaxies that consumed all life in their path. If Queen Zethara was telling the truth, then the rogue humans hadn't just committed genocide. They doomed thousands of species to extinction. How many? Chen asked quietly. 17 refugee fleets. The Queen replied, her voice heavy with grief. Nearly 2 million beings, including 43 species that were already on the brink of extinction. Because of your people's actions, those 43 species are now gone forever. The bridge fell into stunned silence. Chen felt the weight of collective guilt settling on his shoulders. Even if the TDC hadn't authorized these attacks, they bore responsibility for the weapons and ships that had made them possible. There's something else, Queen Zethara continued, her massive form moving closer to the screen. The leader of these human raiders, the one your files identify as Captain James Voss, transmitted a message after each attack. Would you like to hear what he said? Chen nodded, dreading what he was about to learn. The screen shifted, showing grainy footage of a human figure in TDC uniform. Chen recognized Voss immediately. A tall, lean man with prematurely gray hair and cold blue eyes that had always unsettled those around him. To any Xeno listening to this transmission, Voss's recorded voice rang out. Let this be a lesson. Humanity will not be contained to our little corner of the galaxy. We will expand, we will conquer, and we will cleanse the stars of alien contamination. The TDC command may be too weak to acknowledge our destiny, but we are not. We are the future of human evolution. The recording ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Chen felt sick to his stomach. Voss wasn't just a rogue captain. He was a fanatic, leading a movement that threatened to destroy everything humanity had built among the stars. You see now why I must act, Queen Zethara said, her voice carrying the weight of eons. I cannot allow the species I nurtured to become the very evil I spent millennia protecting others from. Your Majesty, Chen said desperately, give us a chance to stop them. Let humanity clean up its own mess. The Queen's compound eyes focused on him with laser intensity. And how exactly would you propose to do that, Admiral Chen? Your entire fleet consists of 200 ships. Captain Voss commands 15 vessels and has already demonstrated his willingness to use weapons of mass destruction. By my calculations, you lack both the firepower and the tactical advantage necessary to defeat him. Chen knew she was right. The TDC fleet was designed for defensive operations and peacekeeping missions. They weren't equipped for the kind of hunt and destroy operation that would be needed to stop Voss and his followers. However, Queen Zethara continued, I'm listening, Chen said immediately. The alien queen's 4 arms moved in complex patterns, and new data began appearing on the TDC displays. Star charts, ship specifications, and tactical analyses flowed across the screens. For 65 million years, I have maintained a network of monitoring stations and defensive installations throughout this galaxy, she explained. When your people first achieved interstellar flight, I began preparing for the day when humanity would need to face threats beyond your current capabilities. The data showed a vast network of alien installations scattered across known space, each one marked with energy readings that dwarfed anything in the TDC arsenal. I had intended these resources to be humanity's inheritance, Queen Zethara continued. Gifts to help your species defend itself and others against the darkness that lurks between galaxies. But Captain Voss and his followers have proven themselves unworthy of such power. What are you proposing? Chen asked. A joint operation, the Queen replied. Your knowledge of human tactics and psychology combined with my technological resources. We hunt down Captain Voss together and put an end to his crusade before it can spread. Chen considered the offer carefully. Allying with an alien power would be unprecedented in human history, and many in the TDC would see it as betrayal. But the alternative was allowing Voss to continue his genocidal campaign, or watching Queen Zethara destroy humanity in retaliation. What assurances can you give that this alliance won't become permanent? Chen asked. That you won't use this crisis as an excuse to subjugate humanity? Queen Zethara's compound eyes seemed to soften slightly. Admiral Chen, I have been watching over your species since before your ancestors developed language. If I had wanted to control humanity, I could have done so at any point in your evolution. What I want is for you to become the force for good in the galaxy that I always believed you could be. And if we succeed in stopping Voss, what happens then? Then humanity proves itself worthy of the gifts I had planned to bestow, the Queen replied. Advanced technology, access to faster-than-light communication networks, membership in the Galactic Preservation Alliance. Your species would take its place among the protectors of civilization rather than its destroyers. Chen looked around the bridge, seeing hope beginning to replace despair in his officers' faces. It was an incredible offer, but it came with enormous risks. I'll need to consult with Earth Command, Chen said finally. Time is a luxury we do not possess, Queen Zethara warned. My deep space sensors have detected new attacks beginning in the Tau Ceti system. Captain Voss is accelerating his campaign. Each moment we delay costs more innocent lives. Chen made his decision. Then we don't delay. I accept your offer, Your Majesty. But I want it understood that this is a temporary alliance, with a specific objective. Agreed, the Queen replied. Prepare your fleet for immediate departure. I will provide you with the coordinates of Captain Voss's current location and the technological upgrades necessary to match his firepower. As the transmission ended, Chen found himself facing a new reality. Humanity was about to enter into its first alien alliance, forged in the crucible of a crisis that threatened to define their species' future among the stars. The irony wasn't lost on him. In order to save humanity from its own worst impulses, he would have to trust the very aliens that many humans feared and distrusted. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Reeves said quietly, are we really going to do this? Chen looked out at the alien fleet, watching as massive bioships began moving into formation around the human vessels. Each ship was a marvel of organic engineering, grown over decades by a civilization that had mastered the art of nurturing life rather than destroying it. We're going to stop a genocide, he replied firmly. As the combined human-alien fleet prepared for departure, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would be remembered as either humanity's salvation or the beginning of their end. Everything depended on whether they could find Captain Voss and his rogue fleet before the damage became irreversible. In the depths of space, ancient monitoring systems activated, and weapon platforms that had slumbered for millennia began powering up. Queen Zethara was calling in resources that predated human civilization, preparing for a battle that would determine whether humanity would be remembered as liberators or conquerors. The hunt for Captain Voss was about to begin. The modified human ships moved through hyperspace like arrows of light, their hulls now reinforced with Zephyrian biotechnology that pulsed with alien energy. Admiral Chen watched the readouts with amazement as his ship's capabilities expanded beyond anything he'd thought possible. Shields that could regenerate damage, weapons that adapted to enemy defenses, and sensors that could track targets across multiple dimensions. Emergence in 30 seconds, announced Lieutenant Commander Reeves, her voice tight with anticipation. Chen stood at the command rail, feeling the weight of two species' expectations pressing down on him. Through the alliance with Queen Zethara, they had tracked Captain Voss's rogue fleet to the Kepler 438 system, where intelligence suggested he was preparing for his largest attack yet. All ships report ready, Admiral, reported Communications Officer Zhang. The Zephyrian vessels are maintaining formation. Wave 4P. The combined fleet emerged from hyperspace in a blaze of twisted light, and Chen immediately understood why Voss had chosen this location. The Kepler 438 system contained 17 habitable worlds, each one hosting refugee colonies that had fled the advancing void hunters. Millions of beings from dozens of species had gathered here, believing they were finally safe. They were wrong. Tactical display, Chen ordered. The main screen lit up with a nightmare scenario. Voss's 15 ships had arranged themselves in a systematic pattern around the system, methodically moving from planet to planet. 3 worlds were already dark, their surfaces scarred by orbital bombardment. Emergency transmissions flooded the communication channels as evacuation ships desperately tried to escape the slaughter. "My God," whispered Dr. Vasquez. "He's not just attacking military targets. He's sterilizing entire worlds." Chen's hands clenched into fists as he watched a TDC destroyer fire on a hospital ship trying to evacuate wounded civilians. The medical vessel's shields failed under the barrage, and it broke apart in a silent explosion that scattered escape pods like seeds in the void. "Admiral," Queen Zethara's voice resonated through the ship's communication system. "We must act immediately. Captain Voss has deployed weapons that will render these worlds uninhabitable for centuries." "What kind of weapons?" Chen asked. "Nanobiological agents," the Queen replied, her tone carrying deep revulsion. "Microscopic machines that consume organic matter and convert it into industrial compounds. Once released into a planet's ecosystem, they will devour all life within days." Chen felt his blood turn to ice. Nanobiological weapons were banned by every civilized government in the galaxy. They were considered too dangerous even for military use because they could evolve beyond their original programming and spread uncontrollably. "How long before the contamination becomes irreversible?" he asked. "On the worlds he has already attacked, perhaps 6 hours. After that, nothing can stop the conversion process." Chen made his decision. "All ships, battle stations. We're going in." The combined fleet surged forward, human and alien vessels working in perfect coordination. Queen Zethara had shared Zephyrian tactical knowledge with the TDC fleet, allowing them to operate as a unified force despite their technological differences. "Admiral, we're being hailed by the rogue fleet," Zhang announced. "Put Captain Voss through," Chen ordered. The face that appeared on the main screen was barely recognizable as the man Chen had once known. Voss's features had been surgically altered, his skin bearing the scars of extensive cybernetic implants. His eyes held the fanatic gleam of someone who had abandoned all moral constraints. "Admiral Chen," Voss said, his voice carrying a synthesized quality that suggested vocal cord modification. "I wondered when you would arrive. Come to surrender humanity to our alien masters?" "I've come to stop a war criminal," Chen replied coldly. "Stand down your weapons and surrender, James. This doesn't have to end in bloodshed." Voss laughed, the sound like grinding metal. "Bloodshed? Marcus, look around you. I've already won. 17 worlds cleansed of alien contamination. Millions of Xenos sent to hell where they belong. And when word spreads of what we've accomplished here, every human with backbone will join our cause." "You've committed genocide," Chen said. "Innocent?" Voss's expression twisted with hatred. "There are no innocent aliens, Marcus. They're all potential enemies, all threats to human expansion. The only good Xeno is a dead Xeno, and I'm just helping them achieve their natural state." Chen could see the madness burning in Voss's eyes, the complete absence of the honor and duty that had once defined the man. Whatever had transformed Voss into this monster had consumed everything human about him. "James, listen to me." Chen tried one last time. "Queen Zethara has been protecting humanity for millions of years. She's not our enemy." "Protection?" Voss spat. "She's been keeping us weak, Marcus, preventing us from reaching our full potential. But I've seen the truth. I've accessed the deep archives, learned about humanity's real destiny. We're meant to rule the galaxy, not share it with alien vermin." "What deep archives?" Chen asked, but Voss had already cut the transmission. "Admiral," Dr. Vasquez called out urgently, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups from the rogue ships. They're preparing to fire on our fleet." "Evasive maneuvers," Chen ordered. "Return fire at will." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded human history. Voss's ships fought with desperate fury, their crews knowing that capture meant facing judgment for crimes against sentient life. But they were outnumbered and outgunned by the combined human-Zephyrian fleet. The bio-enhanced TDC vessels moved with fluid grace, their Zephyrian modifications allowing them to adapt their tactics in real time. When Voss's ships fired conventional weapons, the TDC shields shifted to absorb kinetic energy. When they switched to energy weapons, the shields reconfigured to deflect particle beams. "Target their flagship," Chen commanded. "I want Voss alive if possible." The Times Dominion's edge times closed with Voss's command ship, a heavily modified dreadnought that had been retrofitted with illegal weapon systems. As they exchanged fire, Chen could see that Voss had pushed his ship's capabilities far beyond safe limits. Hull plating glowed with excess heat, and energy discharges sparked along the vessel's superstructure. "Admiral," Queen Zythara's voice cut through the battle noise. "Captain Voss is preparing to activate a weapon that will destabilize this system's star. He intends to destroy everything, rather than face defeat." Chen stared at the tactical display in horror. The readings showed massive gravitational distortions building around Voss's flagship. If he succeeded in triggering stellar collapse, the resulting supernova would sterilize every world in the system. "Can we stop him?" Chen asked. "Perhaps," the Queen replied. "But it will require precise coordination between our fleets and a level of trust between our species that has never existed before. Tell me what you need. I must link directly with your ship's tactical systems," Queen Zythara explained. "Allow me to guide your weapons fire, while simultaneously coordinating with my own vessels. The margin for error is microscopic." Chen hesitated for a split second. Allowing an alien intelligence direct access to TDC systems was unprecedented and potentially catastrophic if the Queen had hidden motives. But as he watched the stellar distortions growing stronger, he realized he had no choice. "Do it," he commanded. The effect was immediate and startling. Chen felt Queen Zythara's presence flowing through the ship's systems like liquid consciousness, her ancient intelligence merging with human technology in ways that should have been impossible. The tactical displays shifted to show multiple probability cascades, each one representing a potential outcome of the next few seconds. "All ships," Queen Zythara's voice resonated through both human and Zephyrian vessels. "Execute synchronized strike pattern. Omega-7. Timing must be perfect." The combined fleet moved as one organism, human ships and alien bio-vessels working in perfect harmony. Energy beams lanced out in precisely calculated patterns, not aimed at Voss's ship but at the gravitational distortions surrounding it. Chen watched in amazement as the coordinated fire began to unravel the stellar weapon's effects. The gravitational cascade slowed, stuttered, and finally collapsed back into normal spacetime. Voss's plan to destroy the system had failed, but the rogue captain wasn't finished. As his flagship's shields failed under the sustained bombardment, Voss activated his ship's self-destruct sequence. The explosion would be large enough to destroy several nearby refugee ships that were still evacuating the contaminated worlds. "He's going to ram the evacuation fleet," Chen realized. Without hesitation, Chen ordered his ship forward, placing the Times Dominion's edge times directly between Voss's exploding flagship and the civilian vessels. The blast hammered into their shields, overloading the bio-enhanced defenses and sending feedback surges through every system. "Shield failure in 10 seconds, Reeves reported. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. Chen braced himself for the final impact, but it never came. Instead, he felt the ship suddenly surrounded by a protective field of energy that absorbed the remaining force of the explosion. Looking at the tactical display, he saw that Queen Zythara's own flagship had moved to shield them, taking the full force of the blast that would have destroyed the Times Dominion's edge asterisk. When the energy dissipated, Chen could see that the alien Queen's ship had suffered massive damage. Bioluminescent patterns that had once pulsed with life now flickered weakly, and entire sections of the organic hull had been torn away. "Your Majesty," Chen called out. "Are you hurt?" Queen Zythara's image appeared on the main screen, but she looked different. The alien Queen's compound eyes had lost some of their luster, and her forearms moved with obvious pain. "I will survive." she replied, though Chen could hear the cost in her voice. The evacuation ships are safe. That is what matters. The aftermath of the battle revealed the full scope of Voss's crimes. 17 worlds had been contaminated with nanobiological weapons, and millions of beings had died in the attacks. But thanks to the combined efforts of human and Zephyrian forces, the contamination had been contained before it could spread beyond the affected planets. The decontamination process will take months, Dr. Vasquez reported as she analyzed the data. But Queen Zythara's people have the technology to neutralize the nanobiological agents. The affected worlds can be restored. Chen stood in the conference room of his damaged ship, facing a holographic representation of Queen Zythara. The alien queen had summoned representatives from across the galaxy to witness what she called humanity's choice. Admiral Chen, she began, her voice carrying the weight of eons. Your species stands at a crossroads. Captain Voss and his followers represented one possible future for humanity, a path of conquest, genocide, and ultimate self-destruction. But you and your crew have shown me another possibility. The holographic display shifted to show images from the battle. Human ships risking themselves to protect alien refugees. TDC personnel working alongside Zephyrian engineers to coordinate rescue operations, and most importantly, the moment when Chen had placed his ship between Voss's explosion and the evacuation fleet. For 65 million years, I have guided your evolution, hoping that humanity would one day become a force for good in a dark galaxy, the Queen continued. Today, you proved that my faith was not misplaced. Chen felt the weight of history settling around him. What happens now, Your Majesty? Now, Admiral Chen. Humanity faces the consequences of its choices. Captain Voss's actions have been broadcast across the galaxy. Every civilization knows what your rogue elements have done. Some species are calling for humanity to be quarantined or destroyed to prevent future atrocities. Chen's blood ran cold. And your recommendation? Queen Zythara's compound eyes focused on him with laser intensity. I will tell them what I witnessed here. That humanity is capable of both great evil and great good, that your species has the strength to police itself and the wisdom to accept help when needed, that you are worthy of the gifts I had always intended to bestow. The implications were staggering. Chen could see the other alien representatives processing this information, some with obvious skepticism, others with cautious hope. However, the Queen continued, this trust must be earned continuously. Humanity will be granted probationary membership in the Galactic Preservation Alliance, with access to advanced technologies and faster-than-light communication networks. But you will be monitored, and any return to the path chosen by Captain Voss will result in immediate and permanent isolation. Chen nodded slowly. We understand. Your Majesty, humanity will not disappoint you again. See that you do not. Queen Zythara replied, because I will not be able to protect you from the consequences of future failures. The galaxy has a long memory, Admiral Chen, and mercy is not infinite. As the conference ended and the alien representatives began departing, Chen found himself alone with Queen Zythara. The alien queen's massive form seemed somehow smaller, diminished by the injuries she'd sustained protecting human ships. Why? Chen asked quietly. Queen Zythara was quiet for a long moment, her compound eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. Because I remember when your ancestors first looked up at the night sky and dreamed of reaching the stars. I remember the wonder in their eyes, the hope in their hearts. That spark of curiosity and compassion still exists in your people, Admiral Chen. Today, you proved it to me. The alien queen's image began to fade as her damaged ship prepared to depart. Guard that spark well, Admiral. It is humanity's greatest treasure, and the galaxy's best hope for the future. As the Zephyrian fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Chen stood on his bridge, looking out at the 17 worlds that were slowly beginning to heal. The nanobiological contamination was being neutralized, and refugee ships were already beginning to return to the surface. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Reeves said softly, incoming transmission from Earth Command. They want a full report. 2. Chen smiled grimly. Tell them we have a lot to discuss. And Reeves? Make sure they understand that everything has changed. Humanity is no longer alone in the galaxy, and we have responsibilities that go far beyond our own survival. As his ship began the journey back to human space, Chen reflected on the events that had brought them to this moment. Captain Voss's betrayal had nearly doomed humanity to eternal isolation. But it had also revealed something important. When faced with a choice between protecting themselves and protecting others, the best of humanity would always choose to protect others. The stars ahead held new challenges and new opportunities. Humanity would join the Galactic Preservation Alliance as junior partners, learning from civilizations that had mastered the art of peaceful coexistence. They would have access to technologies that would revolutionize human society, but they would also bear the responsibility of using that knowledge wisely. Most importantly, they would have Queen Zethara watching over them, the ancient guardian who had protected them for millions of years and would continue to guide them as they took their first steps as members of a larger galactic community. The age of human isolation was over. The age of responsibility had begun, and Admiral Marcus Chen, looking out at the vast expanse of space that now held both allies and enemies, knew that humanity was finally ready to claim its destiny among the stars. In the depths of space, monitoring stations that had watched over the galaxy for eons began transmitting new data. Humanity had passed the test, proven themselves worthy of trust and partnership. But the galaxy was vast and full of dangers that even Queen Zethara's ancient wisdom might not be able to predict. The real test of humanity's character was just beginning, and the consequences of success or failure would echo across the stars for generations to come.